Hey everybody. Oh, there's a little bit of sun glare going on here. It's not glaring off my head too much here. You know what? People make fun of me because they say I clapped before, and I caught myself doing it. Dang it, I clapped. They make fun of me. They say, Steve, do you realize you clap before all your videos? I said, no, and I just didn't caught myself. So anyways, let's get into this video. Had a client reach out to me the other day. And they said, Steve, hey, what exactly does this mean? You know, we're interested in this house. It says pending, but right of refusal. So I figured I would do a video that kind of talks about it. So the term like right of refusal, it's really much bigger than just real estate. A lot of business stuff, commercial real estate, rental situations, like my insurance company, when I sign up to do things, and how certain situations were structured or are structured. If I ever decided to sell it, right, XYZ business has a right of refusal to buy it, you know, before I sell on the open market. If we get to an agreement, if we don't, you know, then they don't have to buy it. So right of refusal really, I mean, it has a giant meaning. And just think of the term, right? Break it down. I have the right to I have like first right at it, right? First right at it, right? So it's in real estate, 99% of the time when you see it pending right of refusal, contingent right of refusal. By the way, contingent, pending basically mean the same thing. One's not any better or any worse than the other one. Same thing, different websites just pull it differently. So the right of refusal most of the time is going to mean that the current buyer has a home to sell. Most of the time. Now, there are little one-off crazy situations. I'm only going to get into it because it's so rare. I've never really even seen them. I just know they exist and are out there. But for the most part, it's going to say, hey, this buyer and this seller have an agreed upon contract, but the buyer has a home to sell. So what the seller is doing is they're saying, hey, I have a right of refusal to basically explore other offers if I get them, and if I get a better one that I like, usually in that right of refusal, it is a document. It's an official document, and it's going to have the terms of the refusal outlined, which is again negotiable, and all terms vary. But I'll say average terms read such as this: you have a right of refusal as long as the contingent home, meaning the home that the buyer needs to sell in order to buy the home they want, so the buyer's home, as long as it is not under contract, they'll have the right of refusal. That's pretty typical, because once it goes under contract, right, you don't want that seller to have a right of refusal, because you know you can end up homeless. So typically it's worded like that. And then the other is usually like a 24, 36, or 48 hour notice. So if the seller gets a better offer they want to accept, they're going to go back to that current buyer and say, hey, you need to remove your home sale contingency and move forward with the purchase of this home. Or if you cannot do this, I'm going to move forward and accept this other offer. That is how probably the majority of the terms, it's not even worth discussing other terms. That's probably what the majority of them is. Maybe 72 hours on a very, very long one. But for the most part, 24, 36, 48 hours is your typical timelines. In order for, you know, the seller to give notice to the buyer and walk away and take another offer. I've only seen this actually happen like one time in my career. And the reason is our local MLS, and I don't agree with this rule at all, but our local MLS requires the seller to take their home pending once they have accepted a contract. I think it's within maybe 2 or 3 business days or something like that. From the time you accept, it's got to be pending on the MLS. I disagree with that rule. Because when people see it's pending, most of the time your filters and search engines are set up not to show pending homes. Also, people, when they see pending, they don't really tend to look at them. It's very rare that, you know, I do have people reach out to me and say, Steven, you know, hey, I seen this home pending. You know, maybe they had it saved and it went pending. And so, you know, that saved kind of notified them, and that's why they're asking me some questions on it. But that's the terms for the most part. What I think that should happen is that the sellers should be able to keep the home active on the market, because they can actively entertain other offers. There's a timetable, you know, to that. That's what I think should be done. And that would actually kind of bring first right of refusals back in. And typically what I normally encourage instead of a right of refusal for my sellers, I typically encourage, and even for the buyer side, is that we put a timeline to get the home under contract. So there is no right of refusal, but based on, again, variances, you're looking at somewhere between a 10, 20, 30-day timeline to get that contingent home pending. If not, seller has the right to void the contract, buyer get the earnest money back. But that is what it means in a nutshell, is usually that the buyer that's buying that home, seller and buyer got to agree upon contract. The buyer over here has their current home to sell in order to buy the seller's home. So as always, if you ever have questions on anything, let me know. Happy to, or if you ever heard any different situations, happy to kind of explore that, but that's 99% of all the scenarios. So just wanted to bring that to light because I get that question, ever so often when people see that, on the MLS or on Zillow or something like that. So if you have questions, holler anytime.